What's up? I'm Jared Harris, and you're listening to episode 43 of Beats by Jer. Today, I'm excited to be joined by songwriter, bandleader, composer, label founder, and producer Adrian Younge. I recently first heard of Younge through his recent collaborative album JID 022 with Ghanaian Afrobeat pioneer Ebo Taylor. This is my first introduction to Younge as a producer and his label Jazz is Dead. I was so impressed by the record that without hearing anything else, I bought tickets to see Younge at Toronto's Lee's Palace on March 9th. The show was billed as Adrian Younge with a 10-piece orchestra, which is simply an intriguing prospect nonetheless, but even more so considering all I had heard from him was an Afrobeat record. What would this orchestra look like? Would it be symphonic? Would it be a jazz orchestra? Would it be a 10-piece band? And the answer was kind of all of the above. This was a fantastic show, so much so that it led me to a wealth of Younge's solo and collaborative records. As I would later learn, the show was an accurate reflection of his solo work, particularly his Something About April series, a trilogy of albums that stems back to 2011. Younge has just released a conclusion to this collection, Something About April 3, via Linear Labs on April 18th, 2025. The album is a culmination of his previous work, featuring a gritty analog sound of classic soul inspired by R&B and funk, along with symphonic instrumentations, and this time around, with a heavy influence from Brazilian music. In addition to his own solo work, Younge has founded a pair of labels, Linear Labs and Jazz is Dead, the latter of which has seen him alongside co-producer Ali Shaheed Muhammad of A Tribe Called Quest release records with Tony Allen, Ebo Taylor, Roy Ayers, among so many more. Younge's music has been sampled by the likes of Jay-Z, Common, DJ Premier, 50 Cent, and Kendrick Lamar, making him a truly impressive force of contemporary music and hip-hop. Here is my conversation with Adrian Younge. Adrian Younge, thank you for joining me today on Beats by Jer, and congrats on the very recent release of your album, Something About April 3.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
So let's talk about this record. Tell me about the writing and recording of this album.
Um, well, Something About April 3 is the third installment in my Something About April series that started in 2011. So I have a Something About April Part 1, 2011, Part 2, 2015, and now Part 3 in 2025. Something About April 3. And it's a project where it's more me, like my style than anything I do. I record a bunch of different kind of albums, different kind of music, but so there's something about April series is very much me being that hip hop head that used to sample records and then learn how to play instruments and then write for orchestra. So something about April 3 really represents my evolution as a composer and everything I do is all analog. All the vocals were recorded in Brazil, analog. All the music was recorded in my studio. I'm playing every instrument on the album, with the exception of the orchestra I wrote for and conducted. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
I mean, there's a lot to dig into with just that answer, like it's super impressive. I didn't know that you were actually playing everything on there. Um, Now, even between this trilogy of albums, like there is quite a range of styles. You talk about it being like the most you of your
Yeah,
work. But you also said there is an evolution, and there is like between these three records, like
yeah,
they are very much rooted in that almost like classic soul, like could have been a hip hop sample kind of vibe.
yeah,
But they're like each record is very distinct to itself. This one especially is like rooted in Latin music.
yes,
And you mentioned recording the vocals in Brazil, and I know that you learned Portuguese for this record as
yes.
well. What is it about what was the draw to you to Brazil? What was the draw to the Portuguese language and to that flavor of music?
When I went out to Brazil in 2019, it was my first time, and I was performing with my group, The Midnight Hour, with my partner Ali Shaheed Muhammad, and we performed there, and I just fell in love with the people, and even more so, just I got deeper into the music because I always loved Brazilian music, but I was never able to dig through Brazilian records, and I just couldn't believe how much great music I found. And I just started going deeper into the rabbit hole, and I just really found my tribe out there. And I started to realize how much Brazil has given to the world musically. And I really just kind of wanted to give something back to them because their music was speaking to me so much. And that's why I took the chance to do the final installment of this album in all Portuguese, which is as see for a Brazilian, a lot of times if a Brazilian wants to blow up or get their music heard by more people, they'll record in English. But you don't really hear what we call gringos like myself uh, recording music in Portuguese in hopes that you could reach them. And
Hmm.
that's kind of like where I'm at, you know? So it's like I work with many Brazilians from Marcos Valle to Hildon. I just released an album with Hildon, have an album with Marcos Valle, have an album with João Donato, Azimucci, and many Brazilians and many even more coming. Seyu. But this album was me making an album for the heads, especially like the heads in Brazil, uh, as a solo album, you know?
That's really cool. Was there sort of like a gateway artist for you in Brazilian music that if you were to recommend people as a starting point for
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I would say Arthur Verocai, Hildon, Marcos Valle, and man, I could go on and on. Chimaya. You could start there. That's a good starting place.
Yeah, I know what I'm going to be listening to this week.
Yeah.
I'm curious though. You said that the Brazilian influence really came to you in 2019, and you started this trilogy in 2011. Um, when you started the Something About April trilogy, did you know that it was going to be a trilogy? Did you know where it was going to end up? How much of this was like consciously decided when you embarked on this trilogy at the beginning, as opposed to like developed along the way?
So in 2009, I was the editor and composer for a movie called Black Dynamite. And that score really made people aware of me and what I do. But it's still a score, so I couldn't really consider it my solo debut. So in 2011 with Something About April, I wanted to create an album that represented my DJ crate at the time, which was like Wu-Tang meets Stereolab meets Ennio Morricone meets Motown. Like it's
Ah,
all
that's so
different,
cool.
yeah, all these different canons of music that I wanted to have represent me in an album. So I wanted to make that album as like my debut to say, hey, this is Adrian Younge, this is me. Um, and what started happening is that people started to really refer to me as this genius producer doing this stuff. And that started really in Black Dynamite, but it took a whole nother level in Something About April, especially after people started sampling it. So from, Jay-Z to Common to so many people started sampling that album. And it just really helped to spread the word of what I was doing, So like I became the sample, which is always
Mm,
a cool thing, So I never really planned to have a trilogy, but after seeing how much people loved hearing the style of music I created in Something About April, I wanted to do more with it. And I just made a decision to do that. So when I did part two, I never would have ever thought I'd be doing a part three. But then throughout the years, I realized how many people loved my Something About April albums. And I didn't like I knew people liked it, but I didn't realize that it was like a flagship for me. So I
Mm,
said, "You know what? Let me make one more installment and just close it." And that's why I did part three.
cool. Is it safe to say, if you never knew that it was going to be a trilogy in the first place, is it safe to say that this is in fact a conclusion, or is the door open for continuation in this series?
It's a conclusion because my thing is that um, I love opening up new chapters. And even Something About April 3 is still a chapter, but I don't like to be one of those people that say, "Oh, I retired. Oh, I'm back. Oh, this is
Mm-hmm.
oh no, I have one more." I'm pretty serious when I say that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Now I know there's a musical connection between the records with what you were doing, that sort of hip hop meets soul meets funk, and then the Brazilian influence comes in. Is there like a thematic connection or a narrative aspect that also connects these records?
Um, Visually, yeah. Because on part one, there's a white woman and a white man on the cover. You would never see an album cover like that in the 60s. And Something About April, the title, really means it or really refers to the trials and tribulations an interracial couple would have to go through in this fictional couple went through in the 60s in order to make it. And April represents the season of spring because sing spring again, but like a lot of the lyrics, especially in the song Something About April in the first album, talks about how the winters are cold, but in spring we can spring back and all that stuff. Uh, so having that cover, and then on the second cover, it's two women, but a black woman and a white woman. Same kind of theme. But in part three, it's two black people, darker skinned black dude and a lighter skinned white woman. But all of this takes place in late 60s, early 70s, as far as the fictional backdrop of it. And in Brazil, they were under a dictatorship at the time, and there was a lot of racism going against black people. So it's like how this black couple dealt with the trials and tribulations of just being black in Brazil at a time when black people just didn't have as much value. And that's just kind of what it is. It's a love story that evolves from the visuals essentially.
It sounds almost like one of those like anthology series that you get on like Netflix or whatever, where it's thematically connected, but each season is a different story, a different relationship.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Um, so at what point, like when you talk about the idea of it being concluded, at what point did you realize that you had explored all that you wanted to explore with this theme?
Well, I always say that my job as a musician is to get better, you know. And I say that for all artists. Your job is to get better, not to settle. So I feel like with the trilogy, I did as much as I wanted to within this, and that's why I'm also touring this. I'm literally leaving to Brazil in a week to do a full, tour in Brazil and just kind of spread the word around the world. But I have so much more to say musically that, I'm still making the music. So,
Hmm.
it's still just at the end of the day, it's just a concept.
Yeah,
But it's really just me making the music.
for sure. I'm curious about your path that brought you to this point in your career. When I saw you in Toronto a few months ago, at the start of the show, right before you played, like even a note, you asked the audience what they were expecting from you,
Hmm.
and you kind of laughed at that question yourself. Um, could you walk me through some of the different eras of your performance and recording careers?
Yeah, so I mean, I started in 96 sampling records and started realizing that the records I was sampling was inspiring me more than the derivative music I was making. So I decided to start picking up instruments and I started teaching myself how to play. And I started really developing the sounds that were just in my head. Um, and then I tricked myself into thinking I'm a professional. I started recording stuff. And then I started tricking other people into thinking I'm a professional musician. And because of that, I've been able to do music as a profession for decades, and I do a lot of scoring and film for movie and television. And but what's really at my heart is the music I do for my labels, Linear Labs and Jazz is Dead. That's really what's at my heart. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stuff happening in my world.
Yeah, there's a lot of different avenues. Honestly, I bought a ticket just out of the curiosity. Like I wasn't sure what it was going to be, and you were uh promoting it with like a 10-piece orchestra, and I was like, is this a
Yeah.
jazz orchestra? Is this like a singer with a string? Like it was super cool what it, but I went into it not knowing what it was going to
Well,
be.
well, I hope you enjoyed it.
Very much, very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, so early on, like a lot of your music was attempting to make, I guess we can call it like organic samples, right? Like making original music that was supposed to sound like the music that people like RZA and like Kanye would have been sampling like back in the day.
Well, it's a little
Um,
deeper than that. It's a little deeper than that.
sure, certainly,
You're right.
yeah.
You're correct. You're correct. But basically, what I wanted to do was use the vantage point that hip hop provided when we listen to old records. So you listen like you would listen to something and be like, damn, man, that song needs to be sampled. But
Mm,
but the thing is, what if you could still get that feeling and still make the entire song great? So it's more than just trying to create just the thing that was sampling. It's using this sample point of view in order to create full compositions that are worth
for
listening.
sure, yeah. I think you've done a fantastic job with
Well,
that.
thank you.
But I mean, like since you've started doing that, I think like there's like almost a full circle moment seeing that your music was being sampled by people like Jay-Z, DJ Premier, Common, Kendrick Lamar, so many others, right?
Yeah.
Was that like not necessarily like not the end goal, obviously, but like was that something that you thought would happen with this style of music that you were doing? Was that something that kind of caught you off guard, like you didn't expect to
So
be?
there's a song called Sirens on something about April Part One, and when I made that, I was on the Wax Poetics label. I remember when turned it into them, I said, "I hope this song gets sampled by like a Kanye or a Jay-Z." I distinctly remember saying that, and what a year or two later, Jay-Z sampled it, and he sampled another song called Reverie. So it was definitely part of the intention because when you are sampled, you're automatically an OG. You're automatically respected. So I wanted to get that, but also to be sampled by the people I looked up to, like Premier and all these other cats. It was mind blowing and reaffirming the fact that I'm doing the right thing. So it blew me away, but it's all part of the journey. I can't stay stuck on being happy and content. I gotta try to get better.
Hmm, hmm.
Yeah.
Um, Now you mentioned Linear Labs and Jazz is Dead. These are two labels that you have founded that you work with a lot. There is an absolute wealth of music available that you have worked on through both of these. Why two separate labels?
So Linear Labs came out first. And our first record was There Is Only Now, Souls of Mischief. And that I think that was released in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And then we started the Jazz Dead record label in like 2020. And the Jazz is Dead side is something, it's a label with me. Oh, it was founded by myself, Andrew Lahero, Adam Block, and Ali Shaheed Muhammad. And that the purpose for that was for us to create a jazz and jazz adjacent label with
Mm,
Linear Labs. Linear Labs is owned and operated by myself and Andrew Lahero. And that label was started as pretty much my brainchild to do whatever I want to do. So that's why there's two.
Okay, cool, cool. Um, and through these, especially Jazz is Dead, you get to collaborate with many artists. You act as a recording artist, you act as a songwriter, you also act as a producer. You continue to wear so many hats. Where does the name Jazz is Dead come from, and what does it mean to you?
So Jazz is Dead is a name that was coined by Angela Hero, which is the co-founder, but also my manager. And, he was promoting a concert one day and he said, damn, jazz is dead. Because he was promoting a jazz concert and he said, wait a minute, there has a ring to it. And he called me and he said, what do you think about this name for this concert? And I was like, man, that's pretty dope. And he called Ali Shaheed and he agreed. So the concert happened. And then we decided to see the response of people that came. Like we felt like it was galvanizing the troops, and there was just a beautiful touch of irreverence in the air as applied to just music and culture. It felt good.
Mm,
So we decided just to start our label with it and run with it. And we've been developing this ever since. And it's interesting because the name it's really a question. It's a name that's an actual question. So it doesn't it's not an affirmative statement that jazz is dead. It's something that when people see it, they think about it and they talk about it, whether they talk to themselves about it or they talk to other people. It's something that harbors emotion. And when we're doing some of the dopest jazz shit around the world, and our name is Jazz is Dead, uh, what's cool about that is that if you know, you really know. If you don't know, it pisses you off, but then if you do some research, you kind of can't front on what we're doing and you just got to be down. So it's like it's a name that conjures thought and emotion. And for us and what we're doing, it's way better than just calling us like Los Angeles Jazz Company. So
mm.
we're not boring. So that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a striking name. Um, Now through this, you've worked with an incredible range of artists. Just off the top of my head, Roy Ayers, Ebo Taylor, Tony Allen, Ghostface Killah. Uh, is there any collaboration that you've been a part of that truly stands out from this collection that has made the Jazz is Dead catalog so impressive?
I'll say my Azimuchi album, Tony Allen album, and Joao Donato album because they're no longer here with us.
Hmm.
So able to capture certain moments on wax and like that's special because the rest of us can breathe every day. They're not on this side anymore. So those ones to me are the ones with the most memories because making music with people is cool, but nothing's cooler than being able to sit and just hang out with your mentors, your peers, your idols, and all that. That's what really is means a lot to me. That's why the fact that those other, musicians are no longer with us, but we had to spend that time. We got to spend that time. That's why those mean the most to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, is there like a bucket list of people that you would like to collaborate with that you've yet to?
To be honest with you, not really. And the reason is I don't listen to modern music. Music to me, new music to me are old records I have not heard yet. So
Okay.
like I'm just very inspired by old analog music, especially because there's no computers in my studio and I'm so analog. So
None at
it's just,
all.
yeah, none. Yeah, I don't record with computers.
Cool.
At the end of the day, everything has to be transferred digitally. So you need a computer to transfer digitally.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But outside of that, no computers at all.
Strictly
Everything's
tape,
all just
100%
all
analog.
tape, even mixed down to tape. That's why my music sounds different. So like it's you know, it's I love what I do, and in order to do what I do, there's certain tools I need, and it's just like that's why. But going back to working with people, it's not that I think I'm the greatest or anything. It's just that it honestly, like I'm not I'm so inspired by old records and like it's crazy as hip hop as I am. Um, I feel like hip hop stopped evolving.
Mm,
Like hip hop was evolving, hip hop was brand new and it was doing a bunch of brand new things. And now hip hop has hit a point where a lot of it is just redundant. And Quincy Jones said that hip hop mastered the drums, but never really mastered composition. And when you really study music, you could see that,
that's a
especially
really
me being,
interesting quote. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, especially me being on both sides, being the guy that was sampling to now be, to then being the guy that was sampled to then being the guy that's writing for orchestras and traveling with orchestras. So like my thing is no matter what I do, all the music I make is hip hop because hip hop is a pre-college of vinyl culture.
Mm,
Today's hip hop is just it doesn't do much for me. I know it does a lot for other people, which is cool, but I just need more, man. I need more. So most contemporary music is a bit more simple, and I'm just not into I need mu music that really evokes emotion from me, sonically and compositionally. So put it this way, when you ask me if there's anybody, I say no, but that's because I ain't looking for anybody. My thing is that is there dope people that I can make incredible music with? Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
mm.
I'm just, I'm chill. I'm not even really, I got enough music happening right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, is there like a specific moment for you that like resonates as the moment where you recognize that hip hop was no longer challenging or evolving?
Yeah, it was 97 when Puff Daddy was coming out with all that bad boy stuff.
Oh,
And
the shiny suits era and all that?
exactly, yeah. So basically what was happening is hip hop music was being made for the culture, me being a b-boy and a DJ at the time. And then what started happening is that hip hop was being heavily played on the radio, but not for the culture. It was being played on the radio for the club. So the thing is,
Mm,
it just started losing me, and it started becoming a lot more watered down. Then hip hop started to become more keyboard based and less sample based. So sonically, it's not the same as it was once. It's not as gritty. It's getting more cleaner and more sterile, and it just started losing me.
interesting. For the sake of time, I have two final thoughts.
Okay.
Um, uh, you mentioned you're hitting the road next week in Brazil, but with the release of your new album, what does the rest of the year look like for you?
It's insane, bro. This is just one. I got so many new albums coming out. I have like another 6 or 7 on Jazz is Dead, another
This
six
year
or
alone?
perhaps not this year, but in the
Ah,
next, like they're all mastered in the next 2 years. So,
nice.
for the rest of this year, there's a Brazilian called Samantha Smooch. I have a album with that's releasing towards the end of the year. I have a Snoop Dogg album that's releasing towards the end of the year. I have uh, uh, this woman, her name is Liraz. She lives in Tel Aviv, but her parents escaped Iran before the revolution, and it's an album fighting for women's freedom in Iran, and it's like a psychedelic mystery Middle Eastern type album. I have Jazz is Dead albums from like Dom Salvador, legendary black artist from
Mm-hmm.
Brazil, Carlos Dafe. Dude, there's so much stuff, man. It's just I
Oh,
tell
that sounds
everybody that
super
like
interesting.
yeah, just follow me, Adrian Young with an E on Instagram or Jazz is Dead and or Linear Labs, and you could, you know, stay in touch with what's happening. But this is a lot going on, bro.
Yeah, all of that sounds amazing.
Thank you.
The question that I like to leave everyone with, what are your three desert island records?
Man, I honestly, it's interesting because when people ask me this, I really don't have any. And let me tell you why. But I could say three albums that I think are great, but let me tell you why. Because I record all analog and have been doing it for over 30 years, like there's no better sound I want for my own records. A lot of people listen to old records because of the sound, but like
Mm,
I have all that. And that's number one. Secondly, I cut records in my studio. So because of that, because I could cut my own vinyl, because I could record all my own analog stuff, as a producer, as a composer, I don't cover it. And I had a record store for over 15 years. So because of the combination of all that, as much as I love records, I'm not I'm not so precious as I once was before all this, right? So that being said, three albums that are great to me that I love, I'll say,
yeah, what are they?
is Curtis Mayfield's Superfly.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I'll say Air Moon Safari, and let's say Portishead's second album.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that list, especially the Curtis Mayfield.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Um, all right. Well, Adrian, thank you very much for your time. Again, congrats on the new record
You're very
and
welcome. Thank you.
looking forward to everything that's coming out in the next year, year and a half with you,
Appreciate
Jazz is
that.
Dead, and Linear Labs.
Thank you very much, bro.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for checking out my conversation with Adrian Younge. Something About April 3 is available on all streaming platforms, with physical options available through Linear Labs and Bandcamp. Be sure to follow Adrian Younge, Linear Labs, and Jazz is Dead to stay in the loop about all of Young's seemingly continuous stream of music as a solo artist, bandleader, and producer. In 2 weeks, tune in for another new episode of Beats by Jer, and be sure to follow me on Spotify, YouTube, and the socials at Beats by Jer. I'm Jared Harris, and this is Beats by Jer.